Now that we've had a primer in some basic civics 101, let's talk about the practical realities of governing and government. State Senator Eric Lesser of Longmeadow, who worked with President Barack Obama, and State Representative John Barrett of North Adams, previously one of the longest-serving mayors in state history, sat down with me to discuss the differences between theory and practice when it comes to government.
I went into it because I wasn't happy with the way things were going. I felt as though at that time we needed new voices. When I ran this time, I felt as though we needed experience. So I think a lot of people get into it for that reason, more so than the role that they play in public service. They originally go into it with that find that they can bring change to it, they can bring good things, new ideas into it, which I think is important. But I also learned, too, that you have to be prepared to run. You have to do your homework. You have to know the issues. You have to know these things. And that's what I don't see a lot of today, and that people running for office aren't running necessarily all the time for the right decisions, but just running for one issues, those types of things. It's a very difficult job today.
Kind of to echo what Representative Barrett said, my first participation in politics was in my hometown in Longmeadow when there was a series of teacher layoffs because of budget cuts that were decisions made in Boston. And it was trying to challenge the sense of anger and frustration we felt of things not happening the way they were supposed to. To me, it didn't feel fair that 14 and 15 and 16-year-olds should be paying the price of decisions that had been made somewhere else. So we organized, we put a ballot referendum together to overturn that vote. That was really my first lesson, that the political process, when channeled, when you build a team, when you're doing it for the right reasons, can really be a source of good. Best advice I ever got was don't focus on who you want to be, focus on what you want to do. So I think for a lot of people in public service who have been successful with it and who have found the most fulfillment from it, it's really focusing on what you want to do. Do you want your schools better? Do you want your roads fixed? Do you want the environment protected? Focus on the why rather than the specific, title or the specific job line, and you'll see success.
In the best sense, what should government do for the citizens in the state in this case?
Well, never lose sight of why you're there and who put you there. They forget the issues that they were running on, that they should be bringing to the table and fighting for. I think that's what people elect you for. If you're there for infrastructure, you go down there and talk about it. If you're there for education in schools, don't lose sight of that and get caught up in a lot of the other things that happen.
One of the things I think that people in Western Massachusetts often bemoan is the distance geographically, but I also think in a philosophical sense between the eastern part of the state and the western part of the state is part of the way that you stay connected, making sure you're doing your due diligence in the district, you're taking time to meet with constituents, things like that, or how do you stay connected?
I like to say I have 180,000 bosses. I report to the 180,000 people in my community who sent me to Boston to advocate for them. And on your point, Carrie, that the question you had asked earlier about what's the role of government and why are we there, especially for us in Western Mass, the default is really for us to be ignored. And the big economic changes we're seeing all over our state, all over our country, all over the world, those are issues that have hit Western Mass very hard. And so I really view an important role we have is to step up. Government, and in particular state government, has an obligation to make sure that the benefits of the new economy are spread to everyone. And that includes communities in the Berkshires, communities in Hampden County.
Representative Barrett, let me take you back about 30 years, give or take, when you were mayor of North Adams. When you started, the early 80s, became governor, and I recall being a reporter at the North Adams Transcript, and we had interactions quite often, and I would hear your sense of frustration that at the local level, you weren't being heard, that state representatives weren't being effective enough for your community. What's it like now being on the other side of that divide?
Well, we didn't have the term fake news back then. But, my job as mayor, there's no tougher job than being a mayor. But as a legislator, it's a very time-consuming, and you have to deal with a larger constituency in the sense with different ideas and different things that it's not just about getting money for a water treatment plant. It's not about getting Chapter 90 money for your roads and Chapter 70 money for that. you have to see the bigger picture.
For you, you're coming at it from the other side. You worked on President Obama's '08 campaign. What were some lessons you learned about federal government that have helped you as a state senator?
The federal government and in Washington, the issues are very abstract, and they become really an ideological fight between different sides that are very detached, frankly, from the real on-the-ground needs of communities. And in state government, you just don't have time for that. You can't do that because we have roads that have snow that need to be cleared. People come up to you and they say, my kid is in a class with 40 kids. Where's the state? Where's the help?
What do you say to those frustrated folks then? Because, for you, whether it's working on the East-West Rail issue or for you, Chapter 70 state education funding, which has been a long-time issue for you, I think voters look at it and they say, we're excited that you're championing these issues, but we don't see a whole heck of a lot of movement. And they get frustrated.
What I basically said, that when they're voting to make cuts in education, when they're voting to make cuts in social service programs and things like that, I can relate as good as anybody, knowing they don't see the faces, is what I said. I have seen the faces, and I've seen what the programs that have cut and how the impact will, have a negative process on my community. So that's what I think I wanted to try to do, bring into the legislature. Much in the same way that Eric brought his experience at the federal level to it.
How do you help frustrated voters deal with that issue?
No one's more frustrated than us about the pace of change and the needs that have to happen in Western Mass. The challenge is taking that frustration and channeling it into something constructive. Is it moving a bill forward? Is it getting a good vote that we need? Is it getting the funding secured? That's the real key, and that's the piece that we always need to be working towards and be directing.